So we know that mental health issues have a negative impact on student performance, on learning, just overall student well-being. And if unaddressed, mental health issues from depression, anxiety disorders, ADD, ADHD, even just disruptive behavior disorders make it hard for teachers to teach and for students to learn. And learning about to effectively provide the structure and support for students' mental health issues is one of the many things that teachers need to do, even just to prepare to help students learn. And there are a lot of support options for students who are struggling with mental or behavioral health issues. And I think teachers, at least those who care, do a phenomenal job. But one thing you don't hear much about, usually until it's too late, is the mental health of teachers. And teachers deal with a lot on a daily basis, and they're expected to keep it all together themselves. So they're in a place where they can help the students that they serve. So what do teachers do to give attention to their own mental health, and how can schools or districts prioritize and care for teachers' mental health? Welcome, everybody. I'm Dr. Beasley, and today you're in the Teacher's Lounge, and I'm chatting it up with Mr. Garcia, and we'll talk a little bit more about the mental health of teachers. How you doing, man?
Good morning, Dr. Beasley. I'm actually doing quite well. I'm on summer break. I was, during this whole school year, I was just like, I can't wait for summer break. Summer break is coming. I get my break. And I'm doing quite well.
Do you always take summers off, or do you usually teach in the summer?
This is my second year teaching, and last year I worked summer school. So this year I decided to take the summer off. And interesting enough, I'm an elementary teacher for special education, and last year for the summer I was with high school students. It was a big difference in
night and day, huh?
Yeah, man. It was like, what? It kind of gave me hope, if you will, because I work with some of those students' most intense disabilities, and you're just like, God, how can I support this student in their needs to communicate? And then when you see them some of those students in high school, and they're well behaved, they communicate, even if it's through an AAC device, it actually is. It's very promising, and it feels good knowing that they are able to be out in the community, and and you're not concerned that they can't catch public transportation. It's actually a really cool experience.
So did you have extensive support students when you were in both high school and right now in elementary?
Yes, but it almost felt in the high school like I had more mild students than severe students. That whole mild to moderate, because I had a completely legally blind person with special needs, and so it differentiated, because all the other students were reading at a high school level. They were able, and if they weren't, their decoding skills were very developed, because they would see new words and they were still able to phonetically blend the sounds, and it was just so eye-opening for me as a new special education teacher. And all the images that special education students receive, like, they're not able to, they will never be able to, and it's just like, that's not the case. A lot of these students are computing, reading, independently advocating for themselves, and it's just like they don't get a lot of benefits of their doubt.
That makes me think, it takes, at least from my perspective, when I was teaching, I didn't teach special education, but I had students mainstreamed into my class who had a variety of support needs. And it takes an extreme amount of patience to teach special education. So that kind of works perfectly with, the topic of this show, because, I mean, you have to be in a stable mental place just to enter into special education. And I have a lot of appreciation for people who go into special education, because it's not for everybody. I mean, teaching's not for everybody, but especially special ed. I mean, did you go into teaching desiring to go into special ed, or are you just kind of like, I just want a job, I just want to get into teaching?
Initially, my again, I mean, I was in the office as an attendance assistant. I would um, I I always was available, almost like a therapist for students. Right? They had problems. No one was able to talk to them. They would come and they would talk to me, and I was just like, okay, this is cool. They would, and then there were some like really severe cases where like law enforcement had to be called, and it was just like, I do work in a low income community, and so a lot of upbringing of children and their decision making comes from that area. And so I went to school in the area I work, and it almost felt like a purpose to support the students and the community that I grew up in and where I work in now. And so I did not go into teaching knowing that I wanted to be a teacher. Uh, Growing up, I wanted to be a forensic scientist. I got into Cal State Fullerton, did that for a year, dropped out because I didn't like it, and because I was young and quote unquote dumb. I was making bad choices,
Oh, we all, man.
substance abuse, and partying, and just disregarding education. Then I went back to school in 2013 to Cypress College. Went back for a year trying to figure out what I want to do. I took piping, I took Japanese, I took aviation, trying to figure out exactly what it is my passion was. None of it clicked. Dropped out of there again. And then in 2015, I got a job at a district in the cafeteria. I liked it because I was working in fast food at the time. I was young, Pizza Hut, and so I got into the kitchen at my district that I work now. And 2 years after that, I applied for an office position, got the job, loved the experience working with the administration, office support staff, and just teachers in general. I ended up having a really good relationship with my administrator, my principal. Like we would go out to the bar, we would have drinks. He shared his journey in education and how he was able to overcome financial barriers in that process. And and just to be quite frank, he actually showed me his check at the time because we were good boys, right? And he was just like, Alfredo, this is the type of money you could be making, man. Just go back to school. And again, this is 2017, and I was just like, yo, that's a fat ass check. That's what I want, right?
That's
And
administrator pay, man.
yeah, and you know what? Teachers are not far off from that when you have the years, the longevity, the education, your masters, because they have like pay scales that you go in groups based on the your degree and units
Hey,
apart
and you know
from your
what?
degree.
And that's it's funny you mentioned that because that's one of the things that I thought was shocking to me. People were hating on teachers, oh, they get little pay. When I became a teacher, when I first started going into teaching, kind of a similar story. I didn't desire. I mean, I did a few other things as well, but I was looking at the pay and I'm like, you can make this amount of money and you still have your summers off. You got your weekends off. You're out of there. Everybody else is still working till 5. I'm out of there at 3:30. So I have that time to do. Yeah. So I know exactly what you mean.
And I always heard that too. Teachers don't get paid enough, and they overwork teachers. I mean, but that's all positions. At fast food restaurants, you're hustling, you're busting your ass for a little bit over minimum wage, and in fast food, you're getting cussed out by customers. You're disrespected, not regularly, but a lot more than where I am now. And I've knowing what I made then and what I make now, it is such a relief. Again, I'm off for the next month still, and I have enough to pay for my bills, my rent, my family. Remember, I didn't mention this. I have two daughters, right, Dr. Beasley, and so they're expensive, and on this salary, it is manageable. If you make right choices, you get your check, you don't spend it all because you get paid once a month. And that's like for me, that's kind of the worst aspect of it. Once a month, you got to manage it, but it's
Gotta
a
manage
pretty
money,
large
right?
sum. Yeah, yeah. But I ended up loving teaching after. So I went to school to Grand Canyon University in 2019, again, through my principal, who motivated me. He had people from GCU come to our school site to potentially recruit students who want to get their masters or teachers who want to get their masters and any other possibilities. And he was like, Alfredo, go talk to so and so from GCU. I'll give you can use your work hours. Don't clock out for your lunch. You'll be fine. I got you. So I went to go talk, and he said you can transfer all your units from other schools, and you'll be in basically a year into your 4 year program based on the units I had. And so I went in with the idea of being a gen ed teacher, working with students like you and I who don't realistically have needs other than just learning, right? And I did student teaching in gen ed, but I was also getting a special education mild mod, so not mod severe. And so when I finished school, I had a mild mod and a elementary education um, multiple subjects and a mild mod credential. And in that process, I learned what their if you will, workload was, right. Um, they don't have any much support in the classroom because it's just them, and it's not bad. Let me tell you, it's not bad. It's just for me, it felt easier in the extensive support needs. Gen ed teachers have roughly 25 students. I have 10 to 15 students. And although they have disabilities and some more severe than others, you have assistants to support you. It's actually um, way different from gen ed in terms of following like strict state standards that need to be met expectations. These students, um, they have other needs as well, like just communication, being able to learn to understand what money is, um, adding money, reading. They follow the same standards. It's just really modified depending on their needs, and it's at their pace, which it's quite nice because you know that they're still progressing and they'll be able to go out to McDonald's and order themselves a combo if they have to, right? They don't need their parents. It's nice. And so
Now,
I did not go into teaching knowing I wanted to be a teacher. No.
now you mentioned something, and I kind of addressed it early on. So you are spending all this time. I mean, so for you, it seems like it comes easy. For you, it's not huge, but a lot of people will spend a lot of time focusing on the needs of the students that they teach, and many times they neglect their own issues and health, and whether it's mental health issues, whether it's physical health issues. How do you balance that? I mean, how do you motivate yourself to prepare to teach and meet the students' needs, but at the same time not neglecting your own?
There are moments, Dr. Beasley, where I am overwhelmed. I can't always hide the funk, right? I'm at home, I argue with my wife, I go to work. And I'm stressed thinking, yo, what is she thinking at work? Are we going to be okay when I get home? But when I get to work, I see my students. They love me. They give me hugs. They call me by my name, Mr. Garcia, even if it's Mr. G, because they can't say Garcia. G. I know they're calling me, and we've built good relationships. And so just knowing that I have made an impact in these students lets me know that I have to put, forgive me, all bullshit aside and focus on their needs. But realistically, what I do is I'm a gamer. I like to play video games, and so
What do you
um,
play?
I play. I'm not sure if you're familiar with. It's called Dead by Daylight. It's a horror-based game, a survival horror game. I've also played Call of Duty, 2K, and so I know that after a long day of work, I'll come home to my family. I or my wife will cook, and I will game for an hour or two while I prepare my kids' lunch, set them up with their TV. And so I do like to go for walks. I like to play basketball. I don't meditate, which is some of the strategies that some of the seminars that my district has told us, take a 5 minute breather, just sit there and just think, breathe, take deep breaths, go for a quick little stroll outside the classroom, tell your neighboring teacher, hey, can you keep an eye on my class while I go to the restroom, just to wash my face, right? And
Right.
so and just so you know, I'm not sure if all districts do this, but my district does offer, I don't want to say therapy sessions. They're therapy like sessions where there are three free of them. So after three, you have to use your insurance or whatnot. But I've never done it just because I don't feel like
That's
I'm
still that's
that.
still a sweet offer. I mean, just to even offer that. Some districts don't offer anything.
It's really nice to have those extensions because I did have several days in this school year. Last year was not so much. This school year, it was definitely a lot harder because there were moments where I was in class and I was like, kids were just not behaving. And so during my lunch, I went to go talk to my principal, and she was like, Alfredo, it's like that sometimes, right? You have assistants. Let them take over for 30 minutes while you breathe, while you try to gather all your documents, whatever it is you got to do. Have your students go in centers with their assistants, calm yourself down. It'll be okay. And it was just like, I have so many assignments for school. I have to teach. I have these expectations at work. I'm arguing at home with my wife, and you're just like, oh my God, I'm in a midlife crisis. What am I gonna do?
Right. How do you balance all that?
When that did happen, I let my assistants take over, and I was able to set aside myself 30 minutes to submit a document to the district that they were um, bashing me on for my credentials. And so it was just overwhelming. And I was like, let me prioritize what's most important. My job, right now, because I want to make sure. Not, it wasn't most important at the time. It just felt like my job, my income. And so I started tackling little things in those 30 minutes. And by the time those 30 minutes were up, uh, I was able to cope with everything because it was just like, yo, assignments, recordings,
It's,
uh,
it's
lesson
nonstop
planning,
sometimes. Yeah.
nonstop. And so, and they had a seminar last year for mental health awareness. It was student based, but it also, in that seminar, it told us, talk to your teachers, talk to your other colleagues, it's okay to ask for support from them. Ask those veteran teachers, what can I do if students aren't cooperating, and they'll give you strategies.
I think that's a huge misconception with a lot of teachers, especially newer teachers that feel like I got to do this on my own. I can't ask for help. If I'm asking for help, then it's saying that I'm a poor teacher or I'm unequipped for the job. Use the
Or I'm weak.
resources.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly, exactly.
It is not. That is not what it is. Because let me tell you, you'll save yourself hours of research looking for different strategies that may never work when you could just simply ask someone who's been doing it for 10 years. They've been 10 years in the game, and they'll tell you, try this, Alfredo, try that.
Right.
You
And
got
see,
to
those are
you
little
got to
teacher tips that a lot of people don't realize. And like you said, ask somebody who's been doing it for years. Let me ask you this. So, in the time that you've been teaching, think about this for a minute. What was one of the most challenging things, whether it was student related, administrative related, district related, personal, but something related to your teaching? What was one of the most challenging things that you've experienced so far?
Last year I was teaching and I got a 1 year permit to be in special education mod severe with my preliminary mild mod credential, and I loved it so much, right? And so that year, having the preliminary mild mod credential, my school site lost an RSP teacher. And so the school was without a permanent RSP teacher for 3 months. They reached out to me having the credential to support the classroom. And it's not going to be a good experience, just so you know, okay? And so I said, yeah, I'll take it. They offered me extra pay, so I did some assessments,
For the
Woodcock
money, huh?
Johnson, yeah, for the money, right? And then so what ended up happening was um, the parents of one of the caseloads I ended up taking, if you will, was almost a high profile situation where parents were um, just looking for any reason to make the school look bad, if you will, right? And so the parents were very disrespectful, and I had to maintain my professionalism even in the IEP, right? Because I was in the IEP with a lawyer, uh, representatives, my administrator, my principal, myself, speech pathologist, psychologist, occupational therapist, so everybody, right? Before that IEP, the parents through email were questioning my professionalism, my credentials, how am I able to support their kid, and so it was a very eye-opening situation where I was like, you may run into difficult situation, but you brush it off. You know what, this is your job. You got out at 3 o'clock. You don't have to deal with this anymore, right? 3:30 comes, and in that IEP, it was really nice to see that district members and your administrator back you up.
That's huge. I mean, first of all, I don't care how long you've been teaching. Anytime you go into a meeting like that, you're sweating bullets because you're wondering, okay, is my job on the line? What are the repercussions? How is this going to impact me moving forward? I want to keep my career. I mean, all those things are going through your
I don't
mind.
want
I
to
don't
lose my
care.
credential. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I feel you, man. That's stressful. But
But on the other hand, there are positive experiences as well.
yeah, I was just about to
Not
ask you about that. I mean, on the flip side of that, you have to you take the bad with the good and the good with the bad.
Yeah.
What was one of the most rewarding experiences or positive experience you've had?
It has to do with students, and so I oversee a fourth through sixth grade SDC class, in which my sixth grade students at the end of the year um, go on a Knott's Berry Farm trip, and the experience with mod severe students at a theme park was so awesome. It was just nice to have experienced that with them and knowing that they enjoyed their time. And then it was just such a rewarding experience to know that these kids are taking what they have at school and applying it at home. Those experiences are why I other than the money, why I enjoy what I do, because I am helping these kids live their life just like everybody else. They should not be denied just because they have a disability.
Right, and that's something that people who don't teach don't understand. I mean, when you see that and you feel that excitement, knowing that you contributed something positive to those kids. I mean, it's hard to put in words. I mean, you explained it, you did it well. It's hard to put in words. But that's huge. That's the reason we teach, right? Um, so let me think one more question. Think about this. So, what do you think currently are some of the most stressful or worrisome issues that teachers face? Whether it's, I mean, you think about classroom issues. I mean, classroom disciplinary issues are always going to be a problem. You think about district related things like policies and, expectations from the district. You think about current events, things that are going on in the world, and whether or not parents are talking to their students about it and how they form those opinions and how they bring those to class. Think about the political climate. All of those things are happening. What do you think are some of the most stressful issues that teachers are facing right now when it comes to teaching?
Honestly, just navigating frequent changes in policies is realistically the most difficult to keep up with changes in assessments for becoming a teacher. How to again, mental health awareness was something in the last couple years that has come about, and just policies keep changing. For at least for me, at least they're becoming new to me, on how to uh, prioritize my what's best for the student or what's easiest for you, right?
Well,
Um,
How do you do that? How do you prioritize what's best for the students, knowing you got all these changes, all these different expectations that are happening? How do you do that?
Well, honestly, I try to tackle all academics in the beginning of the day, right? Like I want to meet my expectations for the school site, make sure that we cover math, English, and writing in the mornings, so that the afternoon it's a little more flexible. So I'm still following those policies, but I'm being more flexible with my students at the end of the day. It could be a fun science or social studies activity, or just even a PE activity. Let's go outside and let's play softball. Let's play kickball, soccer. Let's play. Have an adaptive court for basketball, and so
Did it take you some time to adjust to that aspect of having fun? Like you mentioned, for a lot of new teachers, people who are in their first, second year of teaching, are just, I mean, the stress is overwhelming because they're trying to cross all the T's, dot their I's. They're trying to walk this straight line. And that whole aspect of making learning fun is kind of a foreign thing to them until they get into this routine of knowing what their expectations are and what they should do. I mean, was that same for you?
it wasn't too difficult because I would just put myself in the shoes of the students, and I would appreciate, like, let's say for instance we're doing some math involving money, involving candy, where they're able to I add three pieces of candy with nine pieces of Skittles, right? And then at the end of the activity, go ahead and eat it, right? Eh, a bag of family size Skittles is what, $5, and you have more than enough to teach for this week because you only have 10 students. It's very eye opening that if I spend these $5, I can make education fun. And granted, most teachers don't want to spend their personal money, but if you're going to spend $5 to make learning fun, where the kids are going to appreciate it much more and engage in the activity, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you, I mean, how much money I spent on students when I was teaching, but you do that because of that. You want to make it fun for not only for the kids, but for you too. And
For me,
you care, which is why, I mean, the teachers who complain about, oh, I got to spend all this money for my own materials and things like that are just griping. And I mean, come on. I mean, like you said, five, six, $7, what is that, when you are having a huge impact on those students, and that's going to carry over to the next semester, to the next year. Kids remember that kind of stuff. And we think about, this. I mean, we'll spend $5 on a cup of coffee, but complain about spending $5 for our entire class.
it's funny what you said, Dr. Beasley, because one of like the most memorable phrases I learned from one of my mentor teachers in Gen Ed was, kids, students will probably never remember everything we teach them, but they'll remember how you made them feel always, right? And that's kind of the what sticks around to me is just, I never try at least to show my frustration or stress or overwhelming feelings during class, because I just don't want them to know that or connect that Mr. Garcia was always negative or always mad or mean. It's just, I want them to understand that I was there and I tried my best to make sure you were happy and you were still learning.
What's something that you didn't learn before you got in the classroom that you wish someone had told you, like to prepare you?
There are some situations where you'll run into a, abuse, um, poverty, severe poverty, where students are coming with very dirty clothes or um, overwhelming odors, and um, uh, just the fact that those students are aware of what they're going through, and just you gotta be just open mind that you don't know what goes on at home. You will always try to be that light for the kid, and that is probably the most impactful parts of what I wish I would have known coming into this business, just so I can be more prepared. How to just listen with an open ears, because sometimes it just, my dad was screaming me to get ready for school and this kid's overwhelmed at school, right? But so there's some cases, I don't have clean clothes, Mr. Garcia. I don't want to be in school today. And they're crying to you. and they're just, and you, all you can do is just sit there, try to comfort them and let them know that you're here for them. But apart from that, one other thing I would have appreciated learning is how long it takes to get your credential cleared, right? You got your education, your degree, then you got to get a credential program, or you can do both. And then you got to do an induction, and you still got to pass all kind of assessments, the CSAT. It's not that bad if you really look at it. But I wish I would have known beforehand that there was other details that you need before you can go into public uh, schools, right? Because some private schools, you don't need a credential. You just have to have a bachelor's degree, but the pay is less, or it's not the same, or you run into other factors. But I just wish I would have known that I'd run into many sensitive cases regarding students, and that there's a lot of um, other works required before you are cleared to be a teacher, which makes sense, right? You can't just let anyone be in a classroom full of students, even though they're not able to teach kids, right? They may have a bachelor's degree, they might be intelligent, but they're not understanding, patient, or here for students. And I definitely understand where the state comes from. It's just when I was in going to school, I thought once I got my bachelor's, I got a job as a teacher. That is
Not
not the
that easy.
case.
Yeah. Wishful
No.
thinking. Yeah. I mean, and it's true. And some programs are a little longer than others because how they break up their semester and offering. But yeah, you're right. A lot of teachers don't know. You're pretty much in school 2 to 3 years after you finish your bachelor's just to get your teaching credential. So
But it's not that bad, Dr. Beasley. It's not that bad.
yeah. So you mentioned a few things, but I want to get your last thoughts. What advice would you give somebody who's thinking about becoming a teacher?
So, someone who's going to become a teacher, I would just say go for it. Just do it. Don't think about it, because you'll find this experience much more rewarding than most positions. I got to tell you that this has been my most favorite job, and it's a career now. But it's so fun. Just know that it takes patience, teamwork with everybody you work with, service providers, administration, district, and to be flexible. Sometimes you go into the morning and the kids are not wanting to do writing. Let's do math. Let's change it up. You got to be flexible. Sometimes students are not gonna always fully listen, where you may have to figure out, maybe we got to do some typing because they want to be on a computer. Just be flexible. um, Communicate with families as much as you can. Build that relationship where you build trust, bond, positive relationships. Communication is open. A platform, class dojo, emails. Have your class line available if you have a phone in your classroom. Just be open with parents, and just go for it's not that bad, and it's fun.
Saying just go for it is, it's easy to say, but people don't realize it. I mean, you're juggling so many different options. You're thinking about the financial aspect. Do I have to take out student loans? Do I have to, make sacrifices with my family? Like you said, it's going to take me maybe 2 years to get a teaching credential. What if I'm placed at a school that I don't like? What if, kids have, I mean, you're thinking about all the negative things you hear so often, when in reality, that's not every day. That's not the typical occurrence of every teacher's experience. So some of the things you talked about, I mean, hit on some of the things you can do for mental health. You talked about prioritizing and organizing yourself, focusing on certain things at the beginning of the day. You talked about practicing self-care, whether you exercise, whether you have a proper diet, engage in recreational activities. Like you said, you do some gaming, for a particular time just to unwind. You talked about getting support from family, just supportive collaborations, your own family of your students, collaboration at work, getting support from those people, and trying to realistically, and I know this is hard, and I want to know how you do this, is trying to leave work at work. So oftentimes we bring some of those issues and those stressors and those problems and all the mess that happened at work, we try to bring that home, and then that impacts our family. Do you do that sometimes?
I don't actually. My work stays at home periodically, like with
Or
that
work stays at
caseload I
work?
told you.
Your work
Yeah,
stays at
there was. Yeah, I do. I come home. I do lesson plan. Doesn't take me much time, 30 minutes. But I do not bring my work home. It stays at work. In the mornings, during my planning period, I'll typically correct work, review student material, so that I don't have to bring that home. During my lunch, I'm eating and checking student progress, um, data collections, as I'm working with students. So I typically don't bring my work home.
So you're all about
And
working smarter, not harder.
yeah, yeah. If I have to use my lunch so I don't have to work outside of school, I'm gonna work during my lunch because it's only 6.5 hours. I'm at work from 8 to 3 with a 30-minute lunch. So realistically, it's about 6.5 hours of work compared to working that 8-hour shift and having to work overtime. If you love your time, if you love having free time, teaching is where you're going to make the most of your personal time. I've definitely learned through experience. If you love your summers, if you love leaving work at 3 and not 5, be a teacher.
See, there you go. It's all about just like I said, being smarter, working smarter, not harder. No, I mean, I appreciate you taking the time. I know we talked about a lot of stuff today, and just kind of in closing, thinking about some of the things that school districts can actually do to address teachers' mental health. You're at an excellent place. Like you said, you're provided at least 3 therapy sessions or counseling sessions. When districts can recognize that teachers' mental health is important and needs to be prioritized, that's number one. You mentioned also, just providing some professional development or some training or some offering, just even encouraging people to meditate. That's something else. So just encouraging teachers to focus on mental health, that can go a long way. Any final thoughts on whether it's just teaching in general, issues of mental health, how to address mental health things districts can do?
Um, you know, just if when you're a new teacher, just know you are not alone. You have support. Talk to your colleagues, talk to the service, talk to your administrator because they're the ones that are going to guide you, right? If you're having an overwhelming day and you can take some time to talk to your administrator will give you some good advice, especially if you have a good relationship with them. And don't overthink yourself. Don't overthink it. Um, you'll find that supporting other people is one of the most rewarding experiences because if you and like I feel like you and I have a pretty good mindset. If you're at a great mindset and you're able to help others try to reach the same level as yourself, you're making an impact in life. And I try to live. I'm not very religious, but I try to be a good person and follow things that are not associated with education, like religious, living by the Bible, living by my expectations through God. And so I try to apply that to my job where I'm always there loving the other person, the other students, trying to just show them that I care about them. And it's not hard at all. It's an easy, rewarding experience that I am being paid for. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So I just want to just close by just saying teachers are expected to fill a lot of different roles. I mean, they're the teachers, they're the educators, they're counselors, they're mentors, they're the caregivers, and among a lot of other things. And they invest their time and their energy into supporting their students' well-being and often neglecting their own. And this can lead to additional stressors. It can lead to emotional exhaustion, being overwhelmed, getting just easily frustrated on the job, and just a lack of attention with this can lead to burnout also. So addressing teachers' mental health should be a priority, not only for themselves, but for districts as well, because ultimately it affects their ability to teach and to effectively provide all the different teacher duties that they're expected to do. So schools and districts want to create a healthy, productive environment because it's in their best interest to support and help those who help the students.